Since their founding, the American colonies considered themselves British subjects. The magazines, newspapers, and novels consumed by the people there kept the colonies up to date on the happenings in the mother country. All articles, which would soon carry a stamp of duty of 3 pence under the Stamp Act, sometimes more. The Stamp Act began as a relatively dull piece of legislation at its passage. It was an extremely obscure Act of Parliament in London that was buried at the bottom of many other articles of administrative policies governing the British Empire. However, by the time the Act got to the colonies, it was far more than an obscure or irrelevant fact to daily life there. All over the streets, mobs of angry colonists made their voices heard in all manner of ways. An underground patriot movement began to form. Patriots were individuals who believed that the American colonies should become a separate nation from the British Empire. One of these groups was known as the Loyal Nine, which were 9 American patriots from Boston who met in secret to plan protests against the Stamp Act of 1765. They were mostly middle-class businessmen. The Loyal Nine enlisted Ebenezer McIntosh to rally large crowds of commoners to their cause and provided the protesters with food, drink, and supplies. They were a precursor to the Sons of Liberty, and this group is credited with establishing the Liberty Tree as a central gathering place for Boston patriots. In addition to McIntosh, another member of the underground patriot movement was Samuel Adams. He was known to associate with the Loyal Nine and the Sons of Liberty. He played a key role in the crisis, recruiting members to the patriot cause. The poor but politically active in Boston were divided into gangs and had trouble cooperating. Samuel Adams, at one point, had to swear out a warrant for the arrest of one of the gang leaders to work with the Loyal Nine. Samuel Adams, the Sons of Liberty, as well as the Loyal Nine, eventually merged and held many meetings. The meetings were held in secret, designed generally to resist the new taxes coming from Parliament. The Sons of Liberty had fermented a popular revolt in the colonies. The popular revolt that led to this crisis is what made the Stamp Act unenforceable. The East India Company had tried unsuccessfully to create a tea monopoly. It hoped to achieve this monopoly by undercutting local colonial tea distributors through the passage of laws repressing Boston tea businesses. These cheap, foreign tea brokers were chased away, and the Sons threatened with tar and feathers anyone that shipped or sold such a tea. In 1765, during the Stamp Act crisis, the Sons of Liberty paid a visit to the Royal Lieutenant Governor Thomas Hutchinson and burned his home to the ground. March 5th, 1770, the famous incident on King Street, or as it's known in the colonies, the Boston Massacre, occurs. It is an incident in which British Army soldiers killed 5 male civilians and 6 others. April 1770 saw the repeal of the townshend duties in the wake of the famous incident on King Street. The repeal of the townshend duties was mostly due to the pressure on British firms from the then ensuing colonial boycott of British goods, a repeat of the Stamp Act crisis. After repeal, one law of the townshend duties that remained in place was a tax on tea. The climax occurred when the Royal Lieutenant Governor Thomas Hutchinson ordered the ships to unload their cargo of tea despite the protests of the colonists. On December 16, 1773, when the Sons of Liberty, in perhaps their most famous moment, dumped an estimated 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor, weighing approximately 450 pounds each, resulting in a total of about $4 million of damage in today's currency. This puts the total tea dumped that evening at around 36,800 pounds, which amounts to the dumping of 16 tons of tea into Boston Harbor. Each chest had to be hauled out of the ship's cargo hold by block and tackle, busted open, and shoveled over the side of the ship. This famous act of defiance became known as the Boston Tea Party, an event which grew into a quiet mob dumping tea. Enforcing the Tea Act and Hutchinson's orders were virtually impossible for the royal government due to this popular resistance, stirred up in part by the Sons of Liberty and their contributions to the American Revolution.